Welcome to The Learning Landscape. My name is Simon Matthews. This podcast is supported by Independent Schools Tasmania. Today we are speaking with Lauren Makepeace from Tamar Valley Steiner School.
Okay, thanks Lauren. Tell us a little bit about your role at the school, or perhaps start with your name, your role at the school, and tell us a little bit about the school that you're leading.
Great. So I'm Lauren Makepeace. My official title is Learning Support Coordinator, but
Right.
I'm also roughly in charge of leading literacy programming across our school and in charge of managing assessments as well. Our school is the only Steiner school in the north of Tasmania. There's two in the south of Tasmania. We have our own curriculum, a CARA approved curriculum. So some things are similar and some things are very different from other schools, as is the case with a lot of independent schools. At the moment we have 98 students enrolled from prep to grade 6 plus 17 in kinder, and we're hoping to have a grade 7 class next year, which is very exciting.
Wow.
And yeah, parents choose our school for a variety of reasons, but they often like the connection to nature. We have bush school on Wednesdays, and that we're really looking at the picture of the whole child, so valuing the head, heart and hands in all of the children.
Beautiful. Now, the reason we're having a conversation is because you've been recognised as someone who's doing some really significant work around the implementation of a multi-tiered system of support. So before we talk about what that looks like in your school, can you just give us a broad layman's view of what a multi-tiered system of support, or MTSS, looks like? What is it?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess there's lots of parts to it, but the main thing is looking at the levels of teaching and support within the school in the terms of tier 1 being your classroom teaching, so making sure that that's really, really good quality teaching, but then being aware that children are going to have additional needs beyond that tier 1 teaching, so then looking at how much support they're needing, additional support within the classroom or outside of the classroom. So for tier 2 that might be some additional support with an extra TA or some team teaching in the classroom or some group work outside of the classroom, versus a student needing tier 3 support who really needs an intensive level of support, and often that needs to be outside of the classroom as well as in, and really recognising that with multi-tiered systems of support, it's not just about the learning. So there is kind of these 3 domains, and one is the learning, so they might have challenges with their learning, but also that in the domains of well-being and behaviour. And so a lot of our tier 3 students at our school are not just needing learning support, they're needing wellbeing support and behaviour support as well. So providing across all of those domains and working out where the, I guess, significant difficulties are coming from. You know, it might be that the behaviour is coming from a learning difficulty, or that some sort of behavioural problem is leading to a lack of concentration that presents as a learning difficulty. So analysing those kinds of things has been really important for us.
Okay. Now, as I said, you've been recognised as someone who's leading a school on that journey in a really healthy and helpful way. Where were you before you sort of embarked on this real intentional focus on MTSS? Where were you as a school? What did intervention or support look like?
So I started at the school back in 2022 and took on Learning Support Coordinator late in that year. And so for us, it looked like mainly class teachers having kind of their own personal opinion on the children in their class that needed support, and then choosing, I guess, what would be most benefit to them, rather than looking at it from a whole school perspective. So it's been a big shift for us to kind of look across the school at how do we collect a broader picture of students and the data, how do we monitor that, and then how do we kind of allocate where the resources should go, rather than, I mean, obviously the class teachers are a valuable resource, but especially at our school we have a teacher going with the students from class 1 to class 6. So their picture of their children in comparison to other class cohorts can be very different, because it's not like they're seeing, for example, a teacher might teach class 3 every year and they have a different group of students, so then they can very easily see, well, how do this year's class 3s compared to last year's? It's just a progression, and so that can be very hard then to kind of identify where they should be. If you've worked with the same students, you can always see their progress versus where they actually should be in comparison to, I guess, the norms.
Right.
So it's been a big journey over the last 5 years.
What kicked it off? Was it, how did you start on that journey of thinking, actually, MTSS might be helpful for us in trying to support kids better?
Yeah. So I guess it was kind of in my mind to look at collecting that data at a bigger picture level across the school, but also with the minimum schooling guarantee that came in. That's really prompted us to be, I guess, a bit more formalised about it and really kind of get into the nitty gritty of making sure all of the teachers understand MTSS and the structured literacy and assessment across the school and all of those things to make sure that we all have the same understanding, the same level of understanding.
Okay, so what data were you collecting and looking at prior to this sort of journey into a deeper embedding of MTSS?
Yeah, so mainly it was learning data. There wasn't kind of behaviour tracking or anything like that. So it was looking at learning, and we had a few key assessments that were being done, things like YARC, York Assessment of Reading Comprehension, PAT Maths, a little bit of CENA, but we didn't necessarily have a structure of this is the times of year that we do it, and we didn't have any of the progress monitoring tests like DIBBLES that we're using now. I guess to compare that to now, we're looking across the different domains. So we have things like more incident reporting where we're looking at then tracking, which students are having regular incidents with behaviour or with wellbeing. That then is recorded in spreadsheets and teachers get copies of that to look at for across the term. And also if we've got students that have high level of needs, we do an engagement tracker. So for a few weeks or a longer period, we're then tracking across the day what was their mood, what was their engagement with the learning, what alternative learning activities did they try and what worked. So then we have all of that data to kind of go, well, where are they at now? These are the things we're trying. Is it actually working for them? So from the behaviour perspective, that's been a massive shift for us across the school. And then in terms of the learning, it's been implementing more frequent assessments and things like progress monitoring with DIBBLES, and then being able to track that across the year and across grade levels, across different groups.
Wow. So from what I'm hearing, you're saying we went from a bit of an ad hoc academic learning data journey through to more consistent and aligned learning data, but also spreading that out to behaviour and wellbeing data as well. That's a big journey.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's leave the data for a minute. Let's talk people. How have you brought people along on that journey with you? Because it seems to me that this is not just data that you're collecting or you're seeing. It seems to me that you're saying this is data that we all own and we all collect and we all look at. How have you brought people on that journey?
So because we have a small school, it's really helpful. I can work with a lot of the students. And so I have a really kind of good picture of the students across the school. And I think developing that and being the person initially who ran all of the assessments with the children allowed me to be really, I guess, trusted amongst the staff to go, hey, this person works one-to-one with the children. They understand the children. They give me advice that works when I try it in the classroom. And so I trust that person. And that's really important. If you've got staff in the school who feel like you're kind of, I guess, coming from the top down and just coming in and saying, oh, these are the statistics and this is the literature, I think you should do this. It doesn't really work, and it especially doesn't work for our staff who value kind of that whole picture of the child and what they really need. So meeting that requirement was, I guess, the first part of it. And then also kind of working on it at a staff level of bringing things to staff meetings, talking about learning disabilities, talking about cognitive load theory, talking about MTSS, all of those little things that we've done kind of over the last few years, just bringing bits at a time and having conversations and joining IST webinars and going to different professional developments as teams. We've done the ones with TAs, we've done some literacy ones as a group of teachers so that everyone kind of develops that understanding and everyone can ask questions and not feel like if they don't understand something, they're going to get punished. We're all on that learning journey together.
Yeah. Because when you started talking, it sounded to me like, okay, Lauren's building systems, but really what you're saying is, no. We're bringing people on a learning journey as adults, like it's a professional learning journey. So we're all getting the pictures.
Yep.
How do you look at the data together? So you've talked a little bit about systematizing a bit the collection of it.
Yeah.
What does it look like in a week, in a year, in a month, whatever? How do you get to look at it? What are the conversations about? How do you structure those and, I suppose scaffold those in a way that's helpful?
Yeah. So once we kind of have a set of assessment data, for example, if we've just done Centre for a class, which is a maths assessment, or if we've just done Dibbles, I will then have individual conversations with the teachers about kind of their class cohort and look at, where they're at now, where the progress has been, I guess, because that's important. That's really important for me, is that we might still have children who come up in the red range, but what's their actual progress that they've made? If they've recently worked with a girl who last term she read 60 words in a minute, this term she's read 93 words in a minute. That's a massive improvement for 1 minute. She still comes up in the red zone because she's in grade 5.
Yeah.
But if we're looking at the progress, so that's what I try and have the individual meetings with the teachers to talk about. Because I feel like if I come straight to a staff meeting and everyone sees everyone's data and, oh gosh, you've got 5 kids in the red zone, what's that all about? But having that background of going, well, actually, we've looked at the progress and we've seen the progress shift. So these students might still be here in comparison, but their individual progress is really important to note. So I think that's part of it, so that teachers don't feel worried about what other teachers might think of them and their data. And so particularly in the early days of it, that was really important. Less so now, because now all of the teachers kind of have that understanding of, just because they're coloured in this way doesn't mean that, there's been no progress, or that that's a reflection of the teacher's individual teaching style, I suppose. But yes, once we've had those individual meetings, we'll usually then have a staff meeting, say it might be class 1 to 6 if we're looking at Dibbles data, and everyone will kind of have a look at across the school, across the board, of what the data looks like, and just discuss, I guess, what the next steps will be. But also we do that with individual teachers too, and talk about what interventions are we implementing and what additional reading practice we might do, or all of those things, or are we doing home reading this term because these students have a particular need to go and do that. But we definitely, it's a very collegial approach. I mean, that's the way we run our school anyway. A lot of our decisions are made as a college of teachers. Just forms an additional part of it.
Yeah, okay. So it's interesting you're saying individual conversations. I'm talking to you about your kids, collective conversations around that. What are you, some years down the track now, what are you seeing in your teachers around their confidence with data, around their conversations around the table? What are you noticing?
Oh, it's really good to see. I think when we first had data, they were just kind of like, oh, okay, yep, you've given me the data, that's cool. And then didn't really even necessarily want to have a detailed conversation or a better understanding. They didn't necessarily match that with the things that they were teaching in the classroom.
Right.
I think for some teachers it feels very separate to have a spreadsheet of information with figures on it and go, well, you've sat outside of the classroom and done these tests with my children, but how does that actually relate to my teaching in the classroom and what I can do from here? Whereas now they're really able to kind of go, okay, well, I can see with these particular children, this was a problem. What are we going to do next? This is what I'm going to do. This is what I need you to do. This is what the TAs are going to do. All of those little bits and pieces that kind of, and I have conversations with them, not just when we've got the new data, but they feel like because we've got the data, we're trying these things, I can have little check-ins with you and go, well, actually, I've noticed that this is working or this isn't working. What do you recommend next? There's a few kids that we do the progress monitoring with so that we're getting a little bit more frequent data as well. So that's been something to work towards. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So, it just seems that these layers are building up here. So I teach, to that we've added, okay, I teach and now I gather data and look at that data. Now I teach, gather data and make decisions about what my future teaching needs to look like. How have you gone in that pedagogical space? What's that look like for your school where you said, yep, that kid is reading at 60 words a minute. What is a pedagogical response that moves them to 93? How have you gone around moving teacher knowledge and practice there?
Yeah, so that's where I guess to start with, it was more about, I guess, me doing the learning. Like, I
Yeah,
early on went
yeah,
and did the Autumn Gillingham training, so that was
right.
really great. And to start with, I implemented that in a lot of the intervention. And
Okay,
so, yeah, in the early days, I was running most of the intervention, and so I kind of did the training and implemented it. And then I think a lot of the teachers just kind of got interested in kind of what I was talking about. You know, they think, oh, okay, well, that's an interesting way of looking at it, or I can see that you're doing this in this way. And they wanted to know more about it. So
right.
it became more about me sharing that with them. But then it kind of gets to a point where then they want to do the learning for themselves. So we're using the Jocelyn Seamer literacy program across
Okay.
class 1 to 6 now. And so the teachers have gone and done some trainings with Jocelyn. Then you've got like the video programs and the resources and things. So they are engaged in those kinds of things as well, of being able to go, well, I'm using these teaching materials. I can go and look at Jocelyn's website and her videos of how she teaches it so that I can see if I'm doing it in the way that she's doing it or if there are other things that I can practice. And a lot of modeling and a lot of team teaching. So I've gone in
Right.
and run daily review for particular classes, or I've gone
Yep.
in and run the literacy lessons while the teachers have been in observing, and then the teachers take it over and they have a go, and then I can give them feedback. So that in probably last year and this year has been like our kind of go-to model of particular teachers in particular areas going, we can see you need support, or them putting their hand up and say, I can see that I need support with this. What, like, can we do that together?
Yeah. Okay. And I get that you're a small school, but it really sounds like you're driving, all the components of this minimum schooling guarantee, that the move into direct and explicit instruction, the capturing of the data, the decision making around the MTSS, you're really shaping that. Talk to me about, so I've been teaching, I've got some data, I can see that the data is telling me a particular story. What's your role and the role of the teacher, and together and individually, about deciding what an intervention looks like? Where do you land at going, well, we reckon we might try this? How do
Yeah.
you go about that?
Yeah, so we usually have pretty detailed discussion about the individual student and what their needs are.
Right.
So we've got, I guess in the last couple of years, we're moving towards students who are having a lot more behavioural and wellbeing issues rather than just
Okay.
learning difficulties.
Yep.
And so, whereas in the past it might have been just about going, okay, well, let's look at their literacy. What are they specifically having problems with? Oh, it's oral reading fluency. Let's implement some repeated reading, that kind of thing.
Yep.
But now
Yep.
it's about, well, I can see that that child is extremely anxious and dysregulated most of the day. And we know that they've got reading difficulties. We've done some reading intervention, but they can't even concentrate in the reading intervention because of their
Yeah.
wellbeing issues. So where
Yeah.
do we go from here? We need to actually pull back and go, well, as much as I know that that child needs the reading support, if I can't get them to a space where they can take that in, there's no point in doing the reading support. So
Yeah.
what can we do to support the well-being? And that's, involving more conversations with parents, obviously, because that's kind of a high level issue. But all of that kind of regulation strategies part of it is part of the learning process, I suppose. I'm not sure if I'm answering your exact question that you've
No,
asked me.
no, no. It's great. It's interesting because when we started the conversation, I thought we'd be having a conversation then around learning data that's deepened. So we used to do this, now we do this. But you're saying not only is that happening, you're saying we're also doing that. We're not just focusing on learning data. We're going,
Yeah,
heck, this kid's actually not even concentrating yet. And the reason he's not concentrating is because of his well-being.
yeah,
And so you've broadened out your understanding of a student's readiness to learn.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's
Okay.
been, I think that that's just going to grow over the years. We know
Right.
that things are tricky for kids right now, and there
Yeah.
are lots of kids who don't even want to come to school. So if we can't
Yeah.
sort that well-being stuff out, we don't have kids to come to school to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, it's interesting. I love that you were talking before about the fact that the teachers had cottoned on to what does a good one look like. And okay, Lauren's doing that. Let me see that again. Show me that again. Okay, I want to go, how much of that has been about you understanding not just what the teachers know about the kids, but what you know about them and saying, okay, this next intervention is based on what I think you need as a teacher.
Oh, for sure. And understanding, I guess, the teacher's capacity to take on feedback and take on new things as
Yeah.
well. Like every teacher's different. Some teachers will, no matter what you say, they're like, great, I'm going to try that. Other teachers, you have to go slowly and
Yeah.
not kind of step on their toes and go like, I'm
Yeah.
not being critical, this is just a way to support you. So it's
Yeah.
definitely about understanding each individual teacher in that regard, and
Yeah.
how much modeling they're going to need. It's the same as with the students. Some teachers can see something one time and then they'll do it exactly like you've done it. Other teachers,
Yeah.
they might need 3 weeks before they're okay to kind of go back and do it
Yeah.
in their own way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's okay. That's just the different learning styles that everybody has.
And I love it that you say you're going back and modeling, but you're also going back and giving feedback. Hey,
Yes.
just looking at your daily review today, this went really well. I noticed this, whatever. So you're doing that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Now, one of the considerations that people wrestle with, and it's a good wrestle, is how does direct and explicit instruction and the MTSS model look within our educational philosophy, our philosophical approach? Talk to us about what you've learned around this journey in the Steiner context. What have you learned and how have you wrestled, and what's grown and what's been given up and what's yeah.
Yeah. It's been, I guess it's been hard for us as a school, but also hard for me as an individual. I mean, I haven't done
Right.
the Steiner teacher training. I've come in as just standard teacher training background. And
Right.
so obviously I have absolute respect and love the way that we teach. But then for me I'm learning all these things about structured literacy. That's not the way we're doing things at the moment. How can we kind of meld this together and make it work in a way that respects the Steiner tradition, respects all of the teachers and their values, but also is bringing what we know works for the children. And so it's been a process. It's been a tricky process, and I think we're getting there. We're not completely there yet. I don't know that any school ever will be completely there yet with everything. But it's about looking at, I guess we have a way of teaching of what we call main lessons. So there's kind of specific topics that are covered for 3-week periods where it might be, we're talking about fables in class 2 for 3 weeks, or in class 4 we're talking about Norse mythology, or we're doing fractions, or whatever it might be. And a lot of that's brought through storytelling. So we have such a rich kind of oral practice of oral storytelling and singing and verses and all of those kinds of things. But then being able to go, well, if I'm teaching that in this way that's honoring the whole child, and I am using the head, heart and hands model, what elements of structured literacy can I still bring in an explicit and direct instruction? It doesn't have to be literacy, but what can I still bring in that doesn't kind of override all those other wonderful things that are really important as well? So part of that is melding that into the main lesson, but it's also been about utilizing the day really effectively in terms of, well, I'm going to do my daily review of literacy and numeracy every morning. And in practice lessons, I'm going to do the structured, explicit, direct teaching of those literacy and numeracy skills, and then I can still use the other parts of the day to do all of those things that are integral to the Steiner curriculum. And I'm still doing the handcrafts, and I'm doing the clay work, and I'm doing the recorder, and we're doing the singing. So it's been about kind of utilizing the time most effectively, which has been tricky when you've got kind of other schools going, well, we do 2 hours of structured literacy every single day, and that model of how that works just doesn't work for our school. So it's just about juggling that.
But what you are saying is that yes, it's been a wrestle, but you're still landing in a spot that shows fidelity to the mandate, but integrity to who you are as a school. Yeah. That's great. That's great. Talk to us about some of those things that obviously you've started a bunch of stuff like, systematic data collection and those sorts of things. So you've started a whole lot of things. What are the things you've stopped? Like what aren't you doing anymore that just go like, nah, not doing that?
Yeah. I guess probably the first thing that comes to mind is teaching spelling through something like Magic 100 Words.
Right.
So
Right.
definitely we were still doing that when I came in. And we've stopped kind of all the teachers having their own kind of, one teacher might be using spelled and one teacher might be using words their way and one teacher might be doing this. And then there's just no consistency across the school. So we've stopped kind of all those individual things and kind of gone, actually, we're all just using this program now.
Okay.
And we're going to support you to
Okay.
use that in the way that's most effective.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we've been really lucky in that there wasn't a huge amount of things that we were doing that were really kind of wrong, I guess.
Right. Right.
It's just about kind of, I guess, maybe compacting some of the things that were good, but we still need to make time for these other things. So how can
Yeah.
we do that in a way that gives time for all of the different things, if that makes
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. No. Okay. Okay. It seems to me, and you can speak to this, but it seems to me that that's been a positive professional journey for your team. That they are probably feeling more competent and confident in aspects of their teaching, other aspects where they may have a real passion in the area of Steiner education that hasn't been squashed. So it seems to me that your teachers are feeling supported and grown and able to produce really good results.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Um,
They love it. They love having the programs there and having that structured part of the day to know this is here. This is exactly what I'm teaching. I've got all the resources and materials. I don't need to do a whole heap of planning. So then this other part of the day where I'm going to draw the most amazing chalkboard picture that's going to draw the children into this topic, and we're going to do storytelling where I've read and digested the material and don't have to have the book in front of me and I can tell that story to the children. That's where I'm going to be able to put my time into in my planning, in my
yeah,
preparation, versus having to scour the internet for a worksheet on teaching the CK rule. Like,
yeah,
they don't have to do that anymore. They don't have to go searching for all of those things because it's there ready for them, and that saves them
yeah,
time. And I do think that they really appreciate it.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's great. Tell me what you're seeing in students, and then we'll go to parents. What are you seeing and hearing from students about this move?
Yeah. The students in general, they really like it.
Okay.
They really enjoy it, particularly in the upper years when we've started the morphology program. They're really enjoying that. They're
Okay.
enjoying learning more about the kind of depth and breadth of language.
Right.
I've been teaching the literacy lessons in the 4-5s this term, and it's really great to see what they come out with. They're a really
Yeah.
bright bunch of kids, and they're really enjoying it. And even for the kids who the spelling is hard and the morphology is hard and the reading is hard, they're still able to connect with it and have their own
Good.
thoughts and ideas and sharings, which is wonderful. And being able to have the program there that we can also use for intervention. So for some of the children with tier 2 intervention, they're just getting the same program, but they're essentially getting it twice.
Yeah.
They're reading the same passage an extra time, they're looking at the words an extra time, they're writing the words extra times. And so they're able to then go, well, I feel confident because I practiced this with the TA this morning outside of the classroom, and now I'm coming into the classroom and I'm doing the
Yeah.
same thing again, and I feel confident with it, and I can demonstrate that I can do this, and I feel proud of myself. And I guess we don't in our school kind of encourage a lot of the children having assessment data that they're looking at as such. Like, it's not really something that we focus on with the children, but
No.
for
No.
particular children who are significantly behind older children, I found that it is really helpful for them to kind of go like, you did the doubles last term and you read 40 words, and this term you've read 65, and that's in 1 minute. In 1 minute, you've increased the number of words you could read by 25 words. And they'll kind of go, oh, things feel really hard for me in class, and so I don't feel like I'm making any progress. But when you show me that, I can go, hang on a second, look at where I've come from. And that's the really, really great part about
Yeah.
collecting the data for me, is being able to show those kids, hang on a second, I know it feels like you haven't made progress, but actually, let's pull back and have a look at this, and you have made progress.
Great. That's great. What about parents? What are you hearing from them?
Yeah, really good. We didn't really have a home reading program as such.
Right.
And so that's something we've worked on in the last couple of years, especially with the class ones. We don't do reading and writing in prep. We start that in class 1 at our school, and so starting home reading in class 1, I think the parents really enjoy that, and we've held sessions where they come in and I kind of go through with the class teacher, this is what we're sending home, this is the best way to support your child to learn how to read, and so that gets them kind of engaged and feeling more confident about what they can do at home with their children. So that's been part of it. And with the children with individual education plans who have a learning disability, for them to be able to then see the progress, looking at the data and the interventions that we're providing, and being able to show them directly, hey, this is the improvements that they've made. It's really easy for them to then understand this is where they were and this is where they are now.
Awesome. Lauren, when I hear your story, it just makes me think, what a journey your school's been on. Huge journey. What about you? What's the learning? Tell us about your learning journey and what you've sort of taken on and learnt and grown in the last 5 years.
Oh, it's been massive. I think part of it is that I really have enjoyed it. I've enjoyed learning about structured literacy and about how language works, and about the assessment data and about how the brain works, and all of those things has been so fascinating for me. And it's always kind of shifting, and you're learning more and you're picking up new bits, or working with different children and going, hang on a second, that's going to work for them versus that's going to work for them, and not having to fall into this kind of, gosh, I really don't know what to do for this child. There's always kind of something to try. So that's been really, really great. And also just, it's been about learning to trust myself and see how the other staff at the school kind of trust and respect me and go, hang on a second, I actually do have some really valuable knowledge and something to share, and it's been really good for the school. And if you can all see that, then I can see that in myself. So learning to kind of trust and respect myself, it's been really good.
That's really significant. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's great. Yeah, that's good. What's the sense you get of where do we go next with this as a school? What's the next step in this journey?
Yeah, I think probably, I guess, 2 parts. One is kind of, and it sounds really boring, but it's the documentation side of things. I find that as a school, we're a technology-free school with the students, so that then leads to, I guess, a group of teachers who don't necessarily have amazing repertoire of technology skills. So for me, having everything documented is probably part of the process of how are we keeping track of all this with our actual digital records. That's something that I'm trying to focus on. And the other thing is the numeracy side of things. We've come a long way, but with things like the structured literacy and the professional development and the DIBBLs, it feels really kind of good, the progress that we're making and the place that we're at. Obviously we're still moving forward with it, but doing the same for the numeracy is kind of our focus for the next probably 6 months, is working on those diagnostic assessments and how we're tracking that more closely, and the tier 1 part of that as well.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it, that every school I talk to who's making some really exciting and innovative inroads is always saying, we're either doing it or we're going to start doing it for numeracy as well. They join those dots, don't they?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because once you start to see that it works, you want it to work in all the areas.
Yeah. Look, that's fabulous.
Thanks for listening to The Learning Landscape.